That's comforting.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the debut grand opening of Madvillain Bistro, Bed and Breakfast, Bar and Grill, Cafe Lounge on the water, where we offer you the finest and the finer things. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live on the beats.
The Maid of Sker is one of the scariest horror games I've played in a long time. And it kind of sucks that this game has completely gone under the radar virtually. It came out in July, there was a little bit of buzz, a few reviews, and then it kind of just vanished. And nobody really mentioned it again. And that really sucks because it's a really well-made horror game, especially for an indie studio. And it uses a lot of ideas from different, more well-established horror franchises, but adds its own flavor and flair to those ideas, whether it's the story, the setting, the fact that it uses Welsh horror and Welsh folklore as its base for its horror, ideas and gameplay, which is something I've never heard of before. It's just, it's so cool. And it kind of sucks that it's pretty much gone completely under the radar, even though that's pretty much expected out of most things releasing in 2020. That's not to say it doesn't have a few hiccups here or there. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it, as a whole, is a fairly consistently scary and very fun game. So, the year is 1895, and Thomas, that's you, has just received a letter from his wife? Girlfriend? Mistress? Baby mama? I'm not sure. They don't really specify. She says my love a lot in the letters that she sent you and a lot of times throughout the game, so I guess they have some form of romantic relationship. Hopefully they aren't related, but then again, it's 1895, so anything goes, I guess. Fucking, it could be his first cousin. Niggas still do that now. As weird as that is. Please stop. I'm gonna end this joke now. Anyway, he receives a letter from his lover, Elizabeth, and she's pretty much saying that she's been trapped in the family's hotel, which is Sker Hotel. It's located on Sker Island in Wales, I think. And she's pretty much saying everything's gone to shit, and I need you to get me out of here, but the way that you can do it is by forming a melody for me, which he already did, and now you're going there to deliver it to her. Thomas makes his way to the hotel, and he realizes, oh shit, everything's gone to fuck. It's in shambles. There's blood everywhere. It's just bad all around. Something's gone awry. And Elizabeth is nowhere to be found until you hear a ring on the telephone.
Thomas! My Thomas!
Turns out it is Elizabeth. She's hiding in the attic. She said that her father and her uncle have pretty much made some song that made everybody go crazy. And now they're pretty much killing everybody who's in there, wreaking havoc throughout the hotel. Long story short, it's bad out here. Shit is fucked. But she says that the way that you can solve this problem is if not only you use your melody that you already wrote for Elizabeth before the game started, but if you fix the organ in the main room and play a melody that can go against their song and hopefully break the spell/mind control thing that they did, which infected all the inhabitants and workers and people living in the hotel at the time. So now it's up to Thomas to not only fix the organ in the main hall, but save Elizabeth, figure out what's going on in the hotel, and hopefully put a stop to this mess before it ends life as we know it. Now, when I initially started playing this game, I actually thought it was going to be more of a linear horror experience, similar to something like Amnesia, or The Death of Edith Finch, or The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. For example, I thought that you would just go into an area, solve a few puzzles, avoid a few monsters, find a few spooks, avoid a few scares, move on to the next area, and never visit that area again, and progress in the story. Amnesia style. But it actually turns out that it's less Amnesia and more Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Because after about the first hour and a half, the game opens up and you actually have to backtrack to certain areas you've already explored before to get keys and key items and things that you need for different puzzles, and move around this hotel and the hotel grounds in order to figure out the true mystery of what's going on and progress the story, which is pretty cool. It's very similar to something like Resident Evil or Silent Hill, except unlike in those games, in this game, the enemies can actually open doors within the areas that they're within, which is horrifying, I might add, and adds to this extra tension of cat and mouse that seems to be going on, and seems to be what they were going for the whole time. The way the game is formatted, the hotel, I believe, has 5 floors. There's the basement, the ground floor, the first floor, the second floor, and the attic. Then there's also the gardens, which also leads to a cemetery and a church, I believe. So you have the freedom to explore the majority of these areas as you see fit. And you'll collect keys and key items, like I said before, and you'll be able to go back, open different doors, collect new things, find new save zones, all sorts of shit. And this also is encouraged by the game itself, because the way that the game tells the story is actually, besides cutscenes and having telephone conversations with Elizabeth, because there's telephones laid out throughout the entirety of the hotel and the hotel grounds, you also learn a lot of the story through the save points, because the save system in this game is done through audiographs. I think that's what they're called. I hope that's what they're called, or else I'm about to seem really, really stupid. But when you make it to a save room, which enemies cannot get into, akin to Resident Evil, when you save for the first time, it plays a audio recording of either Elizabeth's mother, her father, or her uncle. And that'll reveal, parts of the plot that you didn't know before. So as you find more of these audiograph save zones, you reveal more of the plot, which is pretty cool. There's also documents and stuff laying around. As usual, they're not too long, not too short. I do not think that they're narrated, so you have to read them yourself, but they're usually quick reads. They're nothing more than like a few paragraphs, so that's pretty cool. The graphics of this game looks fantastic. YouTube compression does not do this game any justice. The only way that you can really see how good this game looks is either through screenshots or playing it yourself, which I highly recommend. Please play this game. It's really good. But after the video, don't play it now. It looks fantastic. Whether it's the beautiful sunset that welcomes you to this kind of freaky area that Scare Hotel is located in, or the dank, dusty, and dried blood-riddled hallways of the hotel, or the extremely dark and foggy forest that you have to travel through at later points of the game. It's just, it's so good, and really adds to the tension that you're facing as you're going through. The music's pretty good. It's basic, but it serves its purpose. It's mainly for ambiance and, adding to the tension. And since this game is heavily sound-based, the enemies can't actually see you. They can only hear you. It makes sense for the game to kind of pull back on the music a little bit. But when it needs to kick up, it kicks up pretty well. Like I said before, the enemies can't see you. They can only hear you, but they can hear very well. So whenever you're sneaking around the hotel and an enemy comes near you, you need to hold your breath, because the enemies can hear you breathing. Now, thankfully, Thomas can hold his breath for about 15 to 20 seconds, because if he had a short, lung capacity, I guess, that would be a much more annoying mechanic than it is. It actually does help the game versus hurt the game by making it seem cheap when you go into these areas and deal with these different enemies. Now, you also have to hold your breath when you're going through like dust clouds or perfume traps that the enemies can lay around to try and make you cough. Of course, coughing is a loud sound, and that'll attract pretty much every enemy within a 5-meter radius to your vicinity, and you'll have to run and hide and do a bunch of bullshit. Now, I said earlier that the enemies can actually move freely throughout the areas. That's a little bit untrue. It's more like each floor the enemies can move freely around in, but they can't follow you to like the next area. They can only freely move around on the floor that they're on, which is, again, horrifying, but it also leads to you having to have different ways of defending against this, because a lot of enemies will follow you into rooms. Sometimes they'll just meander into a room, and now all of a sudden you're doing a puzzle that originally only had 2 enemies in it, and now there's 4 or 5 enemies in it, because their patrol routes change, I guess, as I don't know if it's random or if the AI is just trying to predict where you're going, but it adds a lot of tension. But the game does give you a way to defend yourself. 2 ways, in fact. Early on, you have access to a bell system that's on the main floor, which can allow you to ring certain bells in certain rooms, which can move enemies away or toward from where you need to go. And you can also collect all the enemies in the main room, so then you can access each room freely. However, they will eventually disperse and go back on their random patrol routes. And another way that you're allowed to defend yourself is that further towards the last parts of the early levels, you end up going to this laboratory and getting this thing called the device. I'm gonna call it the discombobulator because that's pretty much what it does. Whenever you're backed into a corner or just want to bum rush an objective and finish a puzzle and you don't feel like dealing with the enemies, you can pull out the discombobulator and, well, play a high-pitched sound that
discombobulate
the enemy. The enemies will freeze, they'll be disoriented, they won't be able to figure out where you are for about 10 seconds, which gives you enough time to either sprint away from enemies that were attacking you or bum rush the objective, which I've done before playing this game, because as long as you have ammo for it, you can keep doing it. However, ammo is limited, and another way the game promotes exploration and backtracking is through the limited ammo. The more doors you unlock, the more rooms you get into, the more ammo you can find for the discombobulator, which is something that I really like. I really like horror games that allow you to fight back. I don't think it changes it to a survival horror game like Silent Hill or Resident Evil. I just think it gives you another way of approaching a situation versus, just sneak around, hold your breath, wait for the enemy to walk by, sneak around, hold your breath, da-da-da-da-da. Like, that would get very repetitive. But now that you have the added, discombobulator, it gives you more options. And also just when you're being chased, like you might make a mistake, you might walk into some glass, you might cough on some dust. It gives you a chance to redeem yourself and save yourself from a potential game over. Now, with all that positive shit said, and hopefully my attitude towards this game being made clear, that I do like this game a lot, heavily recommend it, and hope that after this video you are convinced to go buy it. This game does have a few problems. Not really technical, even though there were a few times that AI seemed to have just gone through a locked door and killed me when I wasn't paying attention, which I didn't think was possible, but that might have just been a glitch on my part. The game never crashed, even though for some reason one of my controllers just didn't work for this game. That was probably, again, a problem on my end. This game has a few issues. For one, the switch puzzle sucks, and it's a puzzle that is used a lot. The reason it sucks is because pretty much how it's set up is that you have to flip a switch and then push a button on a door, and then that door will then be unlocked because you flip the previous switch and then you can move forward. It sounds simple until they start adding more switches. You can only flip one switch at a time, even if you know where the other switch is, and that's very annoying. It means that even if you know where all the switches are, you have to continuously go back to the door, push the button, have the next lock unlock, and then go all the way back to the other switch that you already knew was there, and then flip that switch, go back, push the button again, and then you gotta go all the way back, rinse and repeat for each switch. And it's very dumb and annoying. I don't know if they did this because they based it off how shit worked in 1895. I honestly can't tell. It's very dumb though, and I wish it wasn't set up this way because it's literally nothing. It's just backtracking for backtracking's sake. There's no point. It's not harder. You already know the patrol routes at this point. You're just going back for no reason. And my second problem with this is how they manage the hard difficulty. Now, I played this game on normal, but not because necessarily I wanted to. It's because the hard difficulty had this little mechanic called limited saves. Now, if you enjoy this mechanic, this whole next section of the video is pretty much irrelevant, and you can pretty much either fast forward to the end or skip past this part. But I hate limited saves. They suck. I've always hated them. Even the original Resident Evil games, I've never liked them because it just feels fake. The difficulty doesn't feel real. It just feels like added unnecessary stress for no fucking reason. Could you imagine if Sekiro, which is one of the hardest games ever made, had limited saves? Would that make the game more fun? Would it even make it more difficult? I don't think so. I think it would just make it more stressful for no reason. And the same thing for this game. Like, why not just make a more creative way for the AI to attack me? Or make it harder to sneak around or something. Change the way the puzzles work. Change the order of the puzzles, I don't know. But limited saves has just always irked me. It's never felt like a good mechanic. It's always felt like we don't know how to make this game hard, so we're just gonna take away a function. We're just gonna make you unable to do a thing that you could do in every other game, including on hard difficulty in every other game. It's just lazy. To me, it's equivalent to like when video games make the harder difficulty just you weaker, and then they give the enemies higher health points and defense points. So really the game isn't actually harder, it just takes longer. That's how limited saves feel to me. Whether it's the ink rolls in Resident Evil or only being able to save in one audio graph in this game. Like, the game could fuck up, causing me to crash and then me having to go all the way back to the beginning because I have limited saves. Like, that's not harder. It's just annoying, and I don't like it. But other than those two things, this game is pretty fucking good. Like, just all the way through. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time with it. And you should buy it. Support the devs. Support cool games. This video is late as fuck, but college takes a long time, and I barely have a fan base, so I'm gonna just do these on my own time. Hopefully, I'll be able to get more of these out with school ending and shit. But yeah. Subscribe. Bye.